Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Rehab with Roni podcast. I'm here today to do a little question and answer session. And I like doing this every so often because I think it's a good way for me to hear from you guys, and you get to hear from me specifically what you want to hear from me. And it's also sort of a little celebratory episode because by the time this comes out, we will have passed the day of April 1st, 2025, which is April Fool's Day, but it's also the 1 year anniversary of me going full time on my own. April 1st of 2024, I was officially not employed by any corporation. I didn't have any health insurance. I didn't have a 401k. And I was like, let's do this thing. So it's been a full year by the time this episode's come out. And so I think this would just be a fun way to celebrate, do a little celebration, hang out with you guys, answer your questions, and so many great questions came in. Honestly, I love to see them. I'm like, "Wait, you guys want to ask me stuff. Thanks for asking." So, I'm excited to answer. A lot of them were repeats, so if you hear your question, awesome. If I didn't get to it, maybe next time, but let's get into it. Is it hard to find time to make a podcast while running your own business and doing marketing? I wouldn't say hard. I would say time consuming and requires a little bit more brain power and focus. But I wouldn't say it's hard because I just sort of lump it into this. I guess you could call it social media. You could call it marketing. I include it in what I would consider my online presence. And so with me making Instagram reels, making TikToks, and posting online, I also wanted to have a podcast. I just allot time for it, just like I would allot time for anything else. We'll see how that changes once I have a child. I do have a baby on the way. I'm like, no, guys, it's fine. Literally, nothing is an issue. I have all the time in the world, but I'm sure it'll be even more important then to focus a little bit more on allotting time for everything and being really good about scheduling out. Otherwise, I will get overwhelmed, I'm sure. What's your plan for your biz while on maternity leave? Would love your perspective. Girl, me too. I would love my perspective also, because I don't know. I would love to know what my plan is. I'm in the works of trying to figure that out. It's been busy in a good way. I've been busy in terms of seeing clients, seeing patients every week. And with that comes the realization that I don't know if it's gonna make sense to just shut down the doors for 6, 8 weeks. I don't know if I wanna do that to my patients. I don't know if I stop seeing people, I stop taking new patients maybe 6 or 8 weeks out. That doesn't really sound like something I wanna do either. So, I'm leaning more towards hiring somebody to come in and fill in for those 8, maybe 12 weeks, and then if they're a good fit, keeping them on part-time if they want to. That's something I'm still trying to weigh the pros and cons of and figure out. So stay tuned. I got a lot of those questions. So for all of you that were wondering, I'm still figuring it out. Will you expand to a bigger space and be open to hiring slash partnering other DPTs? What a great follow-up question to what I literally just said. Yes. Will I expand to a bigger space? I don't know. Right now, my space is working really well for me. I mentioned in a previous episode how I'm excited to just stay in one spot for a hot minute because over the past year, it's been just an absolute roller coaster of moving and then moving again and just figuring everything out and then trying to figure it out multiple times over and over. So to be in a new space within a year, probably not. But honestly, who knows? But open to hiring? Yes, I think so. And I will reach out to my Instagram community once I've decided that that's something that I want to do because I know there's so many good physical therapists that follow me and maybe live in the area slash maybe want to move to Chattanooga. It's a great town. So we'll see. What would you tell someone who is just graduating high school and is interested in PT? I would say go and do some observation hours and get exposed to a lot of different settings. So, observation hours, if you're not sure, are what are required for most PT programs for you to have when you apply. So, it just basically shows, yes, I've seen all these settings, I've been there, the physical therapist signed off, I was present. And that way you can kind of see what each setting is like because physical therapy, there's such a wide variety of it. So, get in there, see what works for you, or if it doesn't work for you. I've actually had a couple of high school students come in and hang out with me in my clinic, and I think it's a really good way to just figure out if it's something that's worth looking into further, or you can decide absolutely not. This is literally not for me. What is the best learning resource you used to both teach you about PT and sales? The best resource is honestly the internet. Obviously, that's broad, but Physio Tutors is one that I use on a pretty regular basis. I'm actually in the middle of taking a class with them right now. And so if you're like me and you're not working with a company that provides the continuing education, I would say use your online resources as much as you can because there's so much out there and a lot of it doesn't even cost money. So that's been great for me. And sales wise, just good old fashioned getting out there and doing it is definitely part of it. It's almost one of those things where you're not sure if it's going to work until you try. And reading some books, I think I've mentioned this before, but Alex Hormozy has a book called $100 Million Offers and $100 Million Leads. I've read the Leads book and I thought it was pretty interesting. And so, yeah, look into those. How do you find motivation to do everything that you do? Oh man, how do I find the motivation? I could be really long winded with this answer, but let me try to encapsulate this into a short answer. I remember being in this outpatient physical therapy setting, working, being gone 45, 50 hours a week, and realizing if this is what my life is going to look like in 10 years, I'm going to have kids, hopefully, start a family, and not see them very much. And that family's so important to me. I just remember thinking there has to be another way that I can still use my degree and treat patients and do some good in this world and make a difference without sacrificing so much of my time and without really hitting that salary cap, if I'm being honest. Cause I was like, wow, I'm going to be earning pretty much the same in 5 or 10 years. So, how can I make this work for me? So, that's a motivating factor in itself. Just the awareness of life is short and I want to have time with my husband and my future kids and my parents and my siblings. When you come from a big family, you just value it so much. That's how I feel. So, that was very motivating for me, and on top of that, the action of doing something itself is very motivating. I am responsible for my income. I'm responsible for my online presence, for this podcast. That is sort of a motivating factor in itself. So, once you've started to do the thing and you see results, it's encouraging and motivating to continue doing the same thing. It's almost like it's working for me and I love doing it, and so therefore I will continue to do it. I think if I didn't love doing it, we would be probably having a different conversation, but it doesn't take much to motivate me when I wake up and I'm like, "Hell yeah, let's go get it. Let's crush today." You know what I mean? Okay. Next question. What do your follow-up visits usually look like? Well, this is a good question because there are a couple of key things that I always make sure to touch on that I think could be applied across the board if you're working in orthopedics. I am always double checking their home exercises because they went home with home exercises on day one. And so I'm asking, how did they go? Let's review them. Did any of them bother you? Which ones do you feel like helped the most? What were your least favorite? And then we can go from there because typically I'm altering it every 1, 2 to 3 sessions. So making sure that that looks good. And then we are remeasuring objective measures that we took on the first visit. So let's just say, for example, it's a shoulder patient and they have difficulty reaching overhead. And they had 100 degrees of shoulder flexion on visit one, and they come back and they have 110. That objective data is helpful for me to make sure that we're progressing. And then also the patients like to know that too. So I communicate that to them. I'm not just measuring it and then writing it down and not saying anything. I'm like, oh, wow, look, you got 10 more degrees because you've been doing your X, Y, and Z. So objective measurements, retesting, and then whatever intervention I think is necessary, and then retesting again. So that way they see sort of the clear path of what is about to take place over the next few weeks. Like, okay, these are the things we're working on. This is why it's important. So I'm educating them. It's not just about the numbers in your chart, but how this applies to you functionally. And then we progress from there. What is your favorite pre-workout if you have any? I would say just pure unadulterated energy from within. No, I'm just kidding. I don't take pre-workout. Listen, I drank an Alani Nu one time and I drank a Celsius one time. Now, granted, both of them were after I had been on a long flight coming from overseas. So, you're jet lagged. You get up the next morning. I'm back in the States. The States, listen to me. I'm back in the United States. Who do I think I am? And I go to the gym because I'm trying to get back on my schedule. And both of those times, I drank an energy drink, and both times, a year apart, I ended up passing out at the gym and woke up to somebody like cradling my head, being like, "Do we need to call an ambulance?" So, anyways, needless to say, those highly caffeinated energy drinks, pre-workout, whatever, just don't bode well for me and my body. So, if I'm gonna do anything, it'll just be a little cold brew, a little coffee before a workout, but typically nothing. All right, next question. What do you think of friends/family asking for PT advice if they aren't your official patient? Aw. Can you imagine if every family member like, my dad's asking me for help with his neck pain, and I'm like, "Yeah, but can you Venmo me? We're gonna get you on the schedule. I can't see you." No. I it doesn't really bother me, especially when it's immediate family and very close friends. It's just one of those things where if I had a lawyer friend and I needed legal advice, I would probably reach out to them if it was in their wheelhouse. So, I get it. It's a little bit it's a little unsavory when, you're on vacation and you're standing in line at the buffet and your Uncle Bob is like, "Hey, I've had this nagging shoulder pain for so long," and you're just kinda like, "Oh, no. Please don't make me do this right now." But, you have to be compassionate, and people are going to you for advice, and they trust you, and they also love you, and they just want a little bit of advice. And honestly, a lot of times they're not gonna do what you say, so give them the abbreviated version of what you think is going on. If they're really serious about it, they can come see you. I mean, I've had my in-laws come and visit me at my clinic and go through full treatment plans. I don't charge them, but it's if they're serious about it, then you can really help them, and if they're not serious about it, then give them some advice and go on your merry way. Where do you learn all your unique exercises? Con ed, trial and error, being a creativity guru? Question mark, exclamation mark. All of the above, I think. I don't know if I call myself a guru, but I think having some years of experience under your belt and being able to tease out what works well for certain issues and having little buckets of ideas of, okay, this person's coming in for they had a shoulder dislocation and we need to work on shoulder stability in different various positions. And these are all the exercises I know for that. And also kind of just knowing that the sky's the limit. I think physical therapy is awesome because you can be creative and you don't really have to follow any guidelines unless there's specifically a surgeon sending you a post-op protocol saying don't do X, Y, and Z. You can afford to be a little creative, and through that, you can also figure out what works well for your patients, and not everybody's the same. There are some exercises that are just sort of my go-tos for certain things, and they always render some results, but being creative is fun, and it doesn't always work, but when it does, it's like, "Oh, sweet. What a win." Any PT exercises for IT band issues? I must address this because I probably got 4 of these questions. So you guys are out there, you're doing your spring training, maybe you're prepping for a marathon and your IT bands are hurting. So, I'm here to help. First order of operations is go see a physical therapist. Can you believe that I'm saying that? No way. Yeah. I think going and consulting with a physical therapist to make sure that that's actually what's going on would be the first step. And although that might seem like a lot of work, I think it's worth it because you might think it's IT band syndrome, but there's a lot of other lateral knee pain things that could be going on. So, once you've figured out that it indeed is IT band issues, let me just give you a list of things that I often work on with my patients. Now, obviously, it goes without saying, every person is a case by case and people will be different. But things that have worked for me in the past with my patients have been looking at the shoes they're wearing. So sometimes the biggest change has been just altering the shoe wear. Maybe they're running in shoes that they've been running in for 2 years and they don't realize that it's time to switch. Maybe they need a little bit more medial arch support and just a simple orthotic in the shoe is going to make a big difference for them. Because running is really a single leg sport, you need a lot of single leg stability. So we will work a lot on glute strength in single leg stance, balance in single leg stance, core strength in single leg stance, gastroc and soleus strength in single leg stance. All of these things play into the strength and endurance of the running muscles. That's a very broad general overview, but I think it's applicable for sure. You can try foam rolling your lateral quads, your TFL muscle, your glutes. Those join into that thick band that is your IT band and could be involved maybe in a little extra pulling at that band. And so that is always an option. But again, overarchingly, go see a physical therapist first, see what's going on, even if it's just for a consult or two, and then go from there. And best of luck. If you had to transition to anything but physical therapy and social media, what would it be? What a question. I would say, I'll give you two. Number one, I would be a journalist slash photographer traveling around the world working for National Geographic, writing amazing articles, taking amazing shots because it's so lame, but I do just love to travel and I do love to write. That's my favorite. I've always loved writing randomly. I took like the AP Lit, AP Lang in high school, which meant that I didn't have to take one in college. And I remember being so sad about it. I was like, wait, I don't get to take another lit class. Like all I want to do is read and write. So that would be the first option. Number two, I also think it'd be really cool to I was gonna say work in finance on Wall Street, like, that is so not me, but I'm just picturing myself in, like, a pinstripe, really, really hot fitting businesswoman suit. What would you call that? A pantsuit, and I'm walking down Fifth Avenue, and I'm buying myself a Birkin bag because I just make so much money in the stock market. I don't know. That is so not that is the complete opposite alternate universe Ronnie, but yeah, maybe that would be me. I think I'd be doing that. How did you navigate being a new grad in outpatient? I'm struggling with notes, all caps. Oh, girl, I feel you. The notes, that's a tough one. Let me give you a couple quick little tips and tricks because I think I was pretty good at this. Even my clinic director was like, hey, there's a class on how to be more efficient with note taking with patient care, but I don't think you need to take it because you never take your notes home. And I rarely did. And so a couple things, depending on the EMR system you're using, save sentences. So for example, I would say patient presents to physical therapy session with complaints of X, Y, and Z. And instead of having to type out that sentence, I would just type PT space and it would blurt out that whole sentence for me. You get what I'm saying? So little keyboard shortcuts to make it so that you're not actually having to type very much. I would do the same thing for the assessment at the end. I would say physical therapist focused interventions on X, Y, and Z. Manual therapy focused on improving joint mobility by blah, blah, blah. The point is having some sort of framework where you pretty much know what you're going to do, not to the T, but you have an idea of we're going to start with, 10, 15 minutes of manual treatment. Then we're going to transition into this. Then we're going to transition into this. And knowing that ahead of time, you can almost template out your notes and save yourself a little bit of time. On top of that, as they're giving me the subjective information, I'm literally typing it out. And then as I'm taking objective measurements, progress notes, whatever, I'm also typing it out. So they see, okay, we're going to measure this. I'm going to put it in your chart. And so they're comfortable with me doing that. They don't feel like I'm just staring at my screen, but I'm interacting with them. And then I'm interacting with the web interface that I'm using to chart all of their results. I would say the only time I took notes home was when I had multiple evaluations in one day. And it does take a little bit of time to get in the groove of that, but I would have two patients an hour and both of their notes would be finished before the next two patients came in for the following hour. And that's because I was able to chat with them while also typing. So really hone in on those multitasking skills. And I had the keyboard shortcuts and I didn't have short notes. I mean, I thought I was relatively thorough, but not so long-winded that it took up too much of my time. So I hope that helps. NPTE study plan, parentheses, how far ahead of time? Lucky for you, my next episode will be my entire study plan for the boards exam. So that will have already come out and you will be So pleased to hear it. It's a short little episode, but I think it's kind of good. And hopefully you're not taking it in April because it's really crunch time. But yes, I detail all those things out in that episode. So go check it out. How to convince patients the cash pay model is worth it and to come back. Well, I wouldn't say that I necessarily have to do a lot of convincing because typically, if they're coming to see me, they've sought out my services. They've gone through my website. They have figured out that I am a cash based physical therapy model with an option to do super bills if they so choose. But they already know that going into their initial evaluation. So they're not typically the type of patient that I have to convince then to not use their insurance, if that makes sense. Now, how to convince that it's worth it and to come back, I think the initial evaluation will speak for itself. If you're a good communicator and you do good work and you demonstrate that you can get results and you sort of lay out the plan for what their plan of care is going to look like and how you're going to help them reach their goals, it's going to feel automatically much more individualized than it would if they were using their insurance and seeking care at maybe a different place. And that's not to knock on outpatient PT. I think there's great physical therapists out there. I think it's just a little bit more individualized and you get that one-on-one time. You just get more of it. And so that's what people typically come and are paying for. They're paying for you, the specialist, quote unquote, and they're paying for that time. I don't know if I have to do lots of convincing. It's more so, hey, this is what the first session looks like. And by the end of the first session, I recommend, I see you 8 more times or 10 more times or whatever it is, and detail out what that's going to look like and how it's going to progress. And they are pretty confident in that by the time they leave. And I don't have to do any wheeling and dealing to get them to come back. I love this one. Totally out of the left field. Thank you for this. If you had to give one tip to make the Step Brothers movie better, what would it be and why? Okay, here's the thing about this is gonna potentially anger a lot of people. But I went back and watched Step Brothers. I quote it all the time, by the way. So it's not a movie that I dislike, but I went back and watched it a couple years ago with my brother, expecting to just be cackling the whole time. And I was kind of thinking it wasn't that funny. And I don't know if it's just the humor was different back in, I don't even know, what was it, 2008 when that movie came out? Maybe my humor has changed, but I wouldn't change anything. It's a classic, it's iconic, but I also wasn't that entertained the last time I saw it. Maybe I need to go back and do it again. It's been a few years, but great movie overall. What's your best advice for a new grad looking to open their own clinic in the future? This was, again, one of those ones I think I got maybe 10 times in different words, but basically asking the same thing. And I think more than anything, your experience as a physical therapist is paramount. That needs to come first more than your focus on opening your own business. And maybe you are literally a genius and you know everything there is to know about physical therapy and you can go right out of school and just bam, open your own clinic and be successful. But I mean, I only had 2 years of actual work experience before I opened my own clinic, and I planned on having more. It just didn't work out that way. You can go back and listen to that episode. But I would say at least 2 years of experience before you decide to go out on your own. So you will know when you're ready. Well, that's not true necessarily. You might never feel ready, but having at least 2 years of seeing a wide variety of patients and getting to try different treatment styles and taking different courses to further expand your knowledge in the field is the way to go. So that would be my best advice. I would say give it time and give yourself the opportunity to experience what it's like to work in different settings, or at least in the orthopedic setting before you bop off on your own, because that is a whole undertaking that requires a lot of other skill sets. And you want to make sure that your clinical skill set is pretty down pat. How do you plan out and manage social media content while building a business? That's a great question. I would say I factor it into the building the business piece. So when I think of Rehab with Ronnie, I think of the brick and mortar clinic. I think of this podcast. Hello, all my listeners. And I think of my online presence as all sort of being part of the business, part of the brand. I don't necessarily content plan out too much. I keep a running notes app in my notes where if I come up with an exercise idea or I do something with a patient that I think is cool or whatever, I will write it down so that I make sure to remember to film it. And then when I have the time and space, so let's say my Monday morning is pretty void of any patients and no one's coming in until the afternoon, I'll block off a couple hours and I'll film 2, 3, maybe 4 videos in that time space. And that helps because then the editing process gets shorter and shorter as you get better at it. And it just makes for seamless content posting. And the schedule that I follow otherwise, if it's with brands, is more so up to them. If they say, we'd love to have this posted by this date, then I follow that. And I kind of put that front and center of my to do list to make sure that that gets done because they're paying me. But otherwise, I just kind of mosey around and do whatever I want. And it's fun. It's fun that way. I try not to be too regimented with it because then I think it would take the fun out of it. How do you learn the anatomy so well? How do I learn the anatomy so well? Well, gosh, haven't taken anatomy since 2019. But what I do is sometimes I'll challenge myself and I keep this app on my phone. It's called Essential Anatomy app, and it's fantastic. I use it to educate my patients, but I also use it to re-educate myself because there's no such thing as too much review. And so I'll challenge myself to not check social media. If I open my phone and I go to tap on Instagram or something, I'm like, oh, nope. And I open the app and I just review some nerves or whatever. And I don't do that enough, but it is a great app to have. I think it's maybe $15 and then you've got it for life and it is fantastic. So highly recommend just continuing to review because you'll never know it all. You'll never be able to retain it all unless you're just some big brained genius, which I am not. So keep reviewing and you'll be good to go. What's your busiest week look like? In clinical care, treatment time versus admin/marketing. Let's use this week as an example. And this is a good week to use because it's actually my busiest week of patient care. So this week on the schedule, I have 19 patients and I have a partnership collaboration that I need to edit and post along with the story. And I have 2 other videos that I want to post and I need to follow up with a couple different providers. On top of that, I have to finish all of the notes, all the 19 notes that I've taken, update home exercise programs. And so I guess I'm working pretty much from the time that I wake up until the time that my husband tells me to stop working. I am working pretty much every day. Let's just say this week, 4 to 5 patients a day. Working on social media, we'll say 1 to 2 hours a day. Direct in-person marketing is not happening this week, and that's okay. Following up with different providers via email, via text, following up with patients to check in and see how they're doing and finishing notes, another couple hours scheduled throughout the week. So I would say it's probably more than 40 hours, but dispersed. I mean, here I am doing this podcast this week also, and this will take an hour, 2 hours with editing included. It's nonstop, but I always make time to exercise, to play with my dog, to lay in the sun, and it's fantastic. It's good. That's not what you were asking, but that's sort of what the week looks like. What are your favorite books? This is a question that I like. As I mentioned previously, I love to read. It's my favorite thing. If you guys haven't heard of the Red Rising series, I highly recommend you get on that. I read all 6 books last year, and I'm rereading the first book right now because of my book club. And it's epic. It takes pretty much any other fantasy-ish book. I don't know if you could even call it fantasy. It's extraterrestrial, intergalactic travel. Anyways, it takes all the other books and just overshadows them. I mean, nothing compares to this book series. I am a huge fan. So that's my favorite right now. I tell everybody to read it. And then let's go nonfiction. Eckhart Tolle has a good book. I don't know if you could call it self-help. I low-key hate that term, self-help, but he has a book called The Power of Now, and I think it's a really good one for anybody who is struggling living in the present moment, which I think we all are because we're all on our phones. And so that's been really helpful for me. I read it on and off kind of all year long. It's got so many good little tidbits in it, and so I love that one. And if we're getting PT specific, the Low Back Disorders by Dr. Stuart McGill, I'm kind of finishing that up. He gets so into the weeds with the science of it. So it's been a bit of a lengthy read because you can't just sit there and devour the whole thing. I also didn't realize how controversial the guy was. I mean, he's so smart. He's done so much research. He's world renowned back specialist, but people hate on him. But his book is great. And so that's definitely a nonfiction physical therapy-ish related book that is my favorite recently. What's your go-to never skip post-workout stretch? I'm smiling as I read this because I'm ashamed to say nothing. I don't have a post-workout stretch, and shame on me. Now listen, my patients do, but I don't. And I think it's because I don't currently have any ailments. But if I had a pain or had something going on, I would be very, very good about my home exercise program. I don't really have one right now. However, I will say before bed every night, I do a little series. And let me just lay it out for you real quick. I do cat cow. I do the cobra stretch. I do the splits because I grew up a dancer and I never want to lose it. So I do the splits every night. I do the butterfly stretch. I do a couple little neck stretches. I do some open books and I do a calf stretch. That kind of sounds insane. Like I'm doing all that before bed, but it's so relaxing. And I highly recommend stretching before bed. Feels great. What's your opinion on everybody disagrees with everyone about everything in health and wellness? Do they? I was not privy to that information. I didn't know we all disagreed so much. I think if you get too into the weeds on the comments of people's videos, you can start to feel as if the whole world is at war against each other and everyone's opinions are antagonistic and everybody hates each other. But I think in the real world, if you talk to other like-minded professionals, people are pretty much on the same page, especially in the physical therapy world. No one's really disagreeing on that much, but I'm sure social media spins it in a different light. What are the most common mistakes that lead to re-injury after a knee surgery? Great question. And honestly, I don't see a ton of knee surgeries these days. Typically, if you are post-op ACL, MCL, meniscus, what have you, your provider is sending you to an outpatient clinic that your insurance covers and you're going for 20 visits. But I will say in the past, most of the time it is return to sport too soon. And that's just in my experience. Other physical therapists might have other opinions on that. But let's just say, for example, you're a soccer player and you had an ACL injury. You had it fixed. You tore it again. You had it fixed again. And now you're trying to be ready for spring training. Those are murky waters. That's tough because you have a set deadline goal where you need to be back. Maybe you play for a college team and you're doing everything you can, but the body needs a little bit more time. And I think giving it a little more time, sometimes it takes a year for those things to be robust and ready to go. So that's my answer on that. How do you determine the prices for the services you provide? Love this question. My fellow physical therapists that are also in the cash-based business tell me that I need to raise my prices, but I'm keeping them the same for now because it's what I feel comfortable with. But when I was starting out, what I decided on was I looked at what the cash-based rates were for outpatient clinics. They accept insurance, but they also accept cash-based people if they don't have insurance. And I knew at the time in my area, they were charging, I want to say 130 for an initial evaluation and 110 for a follow-up. And so I used that information, I put it into my brain, I rolled it around, and I came up with the idea that mine should be a little bit more because I'm spending more time with them per visit. I mean, the initial evaluation for me is 90 minutes. Each follow-up visit is 60, and it's always one-on-one. So there's never another patient in the room. And with that knowledge, I knew I could charge a little bit more because people are going to pay a premium for a premium service like that. And that's sort of how I went about it. As a new grad, how did you get better clinically away from the imposter syndrome? On the same page, it says, do you feel imposter syndrome starting your own biz? So I think this question came in 4 or 5 times. Lucky for those of you that wrote in, I've got a couple things coming your way. Number one, if you go into my website, I wrote an article a while back about imposter syndrome, and much of it still holds true today. I think everything I said, I meant and I still mean it. And I'm going to be making a podcast episode specifically on imposter syndrome because it seems so common in physical therapy and in any field of work in life. And I wouldn't say I've mastered it by any means, but there are things that I did to figure it out, overcome it. I won't leave you hanging though. I'd say to overcome it coming out of physical therapy school, it took some practice. And I definitely felt like an imposter for my first probably 2 or 3 months. I just felt as if I didn't know what I was doing, and because I had self-doubt, my patients could see right through it, and they knew that I wasn't qualified, and they thought I was an idiot. Not actually, but I think what helped me was being honest with my patients. So telling them, this is what I want to work on. This is what I think is going on. And if in a couple of visits we haven't made any progress, then we need to change course. And it's okay to not be right all the time and remind yourself of that. You don't have to know everything. You can use the internet, you can use your resources, you can go home and do more research to make sure that you are on the right track with a patient, but lower the bar for yourself in terms of perfection and don't try to be perfect. Try to be honest with them and try to help them the best you can. And the more experience that you get under your belt, the better you'll feel. And suddenly you'll go to work one day and be like, "Oh, I've got 4 evals on the schedule and 75 other patients. Cool beans. We got it. Let's go." Who are some of your biggest mentors in or outside of the PT space? So, actually, if you go back and look at one of my most previous episodes, I had Dr. Bobby Hines on. He was a fellow classmate of mine. He was 1 year ahead of me in PT school. And when I was still working for a big company, I saw him out in the world doing his own thing, opening up his space inside of a CrossFit gym and then opening up his business outside of the CrossFit gym and getting his own lease. And I was just inspired. And I reached out to him and we connected and we talk on a pretty regular basis. We just shoot the shit, talk about business stuff. And he's been an integral part in me learning the ropes, I would say. I've got a friend who lives up in Chicago and has his own space inside of a CrossFit gym as well. I did not start in a CrossFit gym, but it just so happened that coincidentally they both did. And between the two of them, they were a huge help within my first year of getting started and just being good sounding boards and being encouraging and helping me troubleshoot things. On top of them, not clinically, my siblings are huge mentors for me. My older brother, my younger brother, my all of my siblings to different degrees. I've got 4 of them. They're inspiring. My parents too. I'm close with my family, and so they are along the journey with me, and they have good pieces of advice. When I was leaving my corporate job, I talked to my dad on the phone a good bit, and he had great advice. My parents are very wise. So just my whole family in general. Incredible people. Highly recommend. Where is Rehab with Roni in 5 years? Put it out there. All right, let's get it. I bet with the way things are going, I've got a bigger clinic and I've hired on a couple fantastic, top notch, top of the line, cream of the crop physical therapists. I am treating 2 to 3 days a week. I'm spending time with my family. I am podcasting, and this podcast has topped the charts. I'm just kidding. No, I'm gonna keep podcasting. I'm gonna keep working on my social media. People are gonna be like, heck yeah, we love this. And that's it. Favorite PT school memes. This came from somebody that I went to physical therapy school with, and we have so many memories together. But the first one that comes to mind, so therefore I think I must share, is the beer Olympics that we put together. One of my friends lived on the Dahlonega Square, which Dahlonega is this small mountain town in North Georgia where our college was. And she had the best house and a big yard. And she decided, we're going to do a beer Olympics and we're going to have teams. My team was Germany. It was me, my little sister, my husband, and one of his friends. And I'm pretty sure we won. But it was a day filled with beer drinking, White Claws, running around the house, relay races. I mean, flip cup, beer pong, you name it. It was so much fun. It was a beautiful spring day. Everybody was having the time of their lives. I'm pretty sure we were basically done with all of our classes and just going into clinicals and just kind of living life on the edge. And it was so fun and totally not school related, but such a great memory. All right, everybody, I think we've reached the last question. In your opinion, what are the biggest pros working as a physical therapist as opposed to other careers? That's a tough one to answer because I've never been in another career, but I would say based off of what I've observed from what other people do versus what we do, here are some of my personal pros. Number 1, we're not sitting at a desk all day. And I know that sounds simple, but I remember in my physical therapy interviews telling the people, like, "Why do you wanna be a physical therapist?" And I would say, "I don't want a desk job. I don't wanna sit at a desk all day." It's something that I cannot do. My body wasn't built for it. My mind was not built for it. So being up and down and all around, working on patients, talking to them, demonstrating exercises, moving about freely at free will, fantastic. I love it. And a lot of people have really cool jobs, but are sitting more, and I simply could not do it. Number 2, I think physical therapy is one of those very rare positions in the healthcare industry where if you are like me and you work in a cash-based setting, in your own setting, or even in an outpatient setting, but you're maybe not seeing a ton of people at the same time, you get more time with your patients than almost every other healthcare provider. So you get that hands-on, you get the one-on-one time, you get to know their history, you get to know about their lives. I mean, you guys know how it is. If you're a physical therapist and you've seen somebody for 12 to 15 to 20 visits, you know their kids' names, their grandkids' names, you know what they're doing that weekend. They baked you fresh bread, they brought it in Monday morning. I mean, it's you really end up having a cool relationship with them sometimes. And that gives you the opportunity to make a difference in their lives because they listen to you and they will remember you and they'll remember the things that you taught them. And I think that's special. I can't tell you any other time that I've gone to a provider and spent an hour with them. That's just not the way that the American healthcare system is set up, and so we are in a cool place to be able to do that. And lastly, I'd say being able to make a tangible difference in somebody's life. And sometimes it's as small as, yeah, I had some nagging knee pain and Ronnie helped it get better before my marathon, to I couldn't bend over to pick up my grandkids and I have to be able to watch them because my daughter works full time and now I can confidently pick them up and move them around and run around the yard and play with them. And whatever it is that your patient's working towards, when you're committed to it and you're helping them get through it, you remember it and it makes you feel like you're doing good in the world. And maybe that's a selfish thing, maybe not. Maybe it's just human nature to want to help other people. If you're a good person, I think, yes. But that's the beauty of it. And that's probably why most people get into it to begin with. Alrighty, I think that concludes the Q&A. I got to a lot of the questions. I'm pretty proud of myself. Tried to stay concise, tried to stay on top of it. I really like doing these Q&As because you guys always have some fun things to chat about. Always good physical therapy related questions with always a few coming out of the left field. So I deeply appreciate it. I am excited to celebrate the fact that I've been open and operating and moving and grooving for over a year now by myself with, of course, the support of you. And it's been a great time. And I'm looking forward to the next episode. I will see you then.